Hello and good morning. Welcome to my channel, Food for HNM. It's like food for thought, where we talk about all things Holy Bible. Holy Bible. Today we are reading 2 Samuel 4. The title of the next section is Ish-Bosheth, murdered. Remember, Ish-Bosheth is one of Saul's descendants, one of his sons. Remember, right now, although King David is king, there is the house of David and the house of Saul. The house of Saul, they're still going, Maybe, have you heard in Europe, like in Italy, there were similar battles between families, and houses? Perhaps this will give you a better idea of what happened in Italy a long time ago. When Ish-Bosheth, son of Saul, heard that Abner had died in Hebron. Remember, these two brothers killed Abner. He lost courage, and all Israel became alarmed. Now Saul's sons had two men who were leaders of raiding bands. Raiding bands. So a band is like a little army. And they would just, with no warning, attack. And then it's called raiding. Like the Raiders, Las Vegas has a football team. The Raiders. So Raiders, they go in and they just take things. And then they return to their camp with stuff, so to speak. But usually it's precious metals, gold, silver. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Gold, silver, bronze, clothing, nice clothing, jewels. They don't talk about jewels, but there were jewels. And then animals, they like animals, and sometimes they would take people. They would just steal your employees, sort of, like usually now you have to hire them away, right? Lure them away with more money and a better benefits package. They just give you that employee. One was named Baana, and the other Rechab. They were sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite, from the tribe of Benjamin. Beeroth is considered part of Benjamin because the people of Beeroth fled to Gittaim and have resided there as foreigners to this day. Jonathan, son of Saul, remember Saul and Jonathan, his son Jonathan, are both dead, had a son who was lame. Lame is his feet don't work, or maybe legs don't work. He's not cool. So Jonathan had a son who was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she hurried to leave, so she picked him up. He must have been a baby, but as she hurried to leave, he fell and became disabled. His name was Mephibosheth. Now Rechab and Baana. Baana sounds like this actor, Eric Bana. He played the Hulk. the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite set out for the house of Ish-Bosheth. And when they arrived there in the heat of the day, while he was taking his noonday rest, they went into the inner part of the house, as if to get some wheat, and they stabbed him in the stomach. Then Rechab and his brother Baanah slipped away. They had gone into the house while he was lying on the bed in his bedroom. After they stabbed and killed him, they cut off his head. Taking it with them, they traveled all night by the way of the Arabah. They brought the head of Ish-Bosheth to David at Hebron and said to the king, "Here is the head of Ish-Bosheth, son of Saul, your enemy, who tried to kill you. This day the Lord has avenged my lord, the king, against Saul and his offspring." So these are some serious warriors, Rechab and Baanah. David answered Rechab and his brother Baanah, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, "As surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble, when someone told me Saul is dead and thought he was bringing good news, I seized him and put him to death in Ziklag. That was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more when wicked men have killed an innocent man in his own house and on his own bed? Should I not now demand his blood from your hand and rid the earth of you?" So David gave an order to his men, and they killed them. They cut off their hands and feet and hung the bodies by the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ish-Bosheth and buried it in Abner's tomb at Hebron. Let's keep going to chapter 5. So the next section is titled, David becomes king over Israel, over the entire Israel. So all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns." So, remember, David killed a giant, and right away, he became like the general. And the Lord said to you, "You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler." When all the elders of Israel had come to King David at Hebron, the king made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. So remember, the only people that can anoint are prophets. So these elders are also prophets. There are elders and tribal leaders. Just you have to remember that. David was 30 when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem, he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. The next section is titled, David Conquers Jerusalem. The king and his men marched to Jerusalem to attack the Jebusites. Remember, what did they used to call Jerusalem? That's right, the Jebusite city. Who lived there? The Jebusites. Remember, Jebusites are not Israel. They're not Israel. They're like these Canaanites or Philistines. The Jebusites said to David, "You will not get in here. Even the blind and the lame can ward you off." They thought, David cannot get in here. Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, but it's actually pronounced something like Zion. There's like a T in front of the Z, which is the city of David. So, all right, for you more advanced people, everyone just take a 5 minute break. Less than 5. Take 5. Okay, so remember, Jerusalem is an important city. So it can be called the fortress of Zion or the city of David, and it used to be the Jebusite city. On that day, David had said, anyone who conquers the Jebusites will have to use the water shaft to reach those lame and blind who are David's enemies. That is why they say the blind and lame will not enter the palace. David then took up residence in the fortress and called it the City of David. He built up the area around it from the terraces inward, and he became more and more powerful because the Lord God Almighty was with him. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, that's Tyre, Hiram, king of Tyre, sent envoys to David along with cedar logs and carpenters and stone masons, and they built a palace for David. Then David knew that the Lord had established him, David, as king over Israel, and had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. After he left Hebron, David took more concubines and wives in Jerusalem, and more sons and daughters were born to him. These are the names of the children born to him there: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan. Okay, Nathan is a important name. Remember, Nathan is one of his children. Nathan is a prophet. Solomon. So remember, that's the very smart person. Smartest person in the world. Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphelet. They sound like triplets, but maybe they're not triplets. The next section is titled David Defeats the Philistines. When the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over Israel, they went up in full force to search for him. But David heard about it and went down to the stronghold. Now the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, Shall I go and attack the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hands? The Lord answered him, Go, for I will surely deliver the Philistines into your hands. So David went to Baal Perazim, and there he defeated them. He said, As waters break out, the Lord has broken out against my enemies before me. So that place was called Baal or Baal Perazim. The Philistines abandoned their idols there, and David and his men carried them off. Once more the Philistines came up and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, and he answered, Do not go straight up. So when he asks, Shall I go? It's like, go up. So now there is, do not go straight up, but circle around behind them and attack them in front of the poplar trees. As soon as you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the poplar trees, move quickly, because that will mean the Lord has gone out in front of you to strike the Philistine army. So David did as the Lord commanded him, and he struck down the Philistines all the way from Gibeon to Gezer. So if you watch my videos in the order that I upload them, I just uploaded a song, Never Fight Alone. So remember, I mentioned that Saul was not a bad king, but he wanted to just do it himself. I mean, he's really a do-it-yourself kind of person. When Samuel, the high priest, came to meet him after 7 days, Saul didn't let Samuel offer the offering. He just did it himself, and he wants to fight himself. He's like, probably like Kim God, it's okay. I'll just do it all myself. I'll fight. Just me and my army. But see, David is less selfish. But selfish is not the word. Because God is also a general, like the 1,000-star general, and he has many of these. Remember, I call them Kadosh Malakim, and I said they're holy angel warriors. So now that makes more sense, right? You can't see them; they're like invisible and extremely large, but they can make themselves smaller. So you see what happened here. The Lord was commanding David as like one of his. Remember, the Lord is called the Lord of hosts. He is always the. There are lords of hosts. So Kadosh Malakim are holy angel warriors, but they are lords of hosts. You have to remember that even when David was talking to Saul, right? They would call each other Lord, probably, Lord Saul or King Saul, right? And Saul might say Lord David or David, but Saul didn't really call David Lord David. It's like Star Wars, you are Lord Vader, and Vader would call remember there's that really ugly guy, his name was, he had two swords. What was his name? Darth Maul. So he would be Lord Maul, right? If Darth Maul and Darth Vader met, Darth Maul would say Lord Vader, and then Lord Vader would go Lord Maul. But remember, Saul was David's father-in-law, so they don't lord back and forth, Lord King, Lord. So remember, they're lords of hosts, so they are like they're higher beings, more powerful, but they are organized into armies, and then so David is very special because exceptional, because he on the entire earth, right? Because he knows God, he's also a prophet. God has it's called favor on him. David leads his earthly army, for the entire earth. And then, remember the da-da-da-da-da-da, right? Remember, I said there's something like, we are one, So, just hang in there with me. So all the armies of the Lord, right? They just consider this earthly army, it's all one gigantic army. The higher armies and David's army is all one army. They're all the Lord's armies, right? Because he is the Lord of hosts. He commands the lords of hosts and all the angel armies, right? The angels, the Kadosh Malachim. Remember, we're trying to take back that word angel. It just doesn't mean a nice woman. Angel, but more properly, a holy angel. They're just these higher, more powerful beings. They say they always see the face of God. They're like very powerful, and they're married. The male ones are like very masculine, and they're usually married to only one female one, and they're like very feminine, and they're like coupled up. But so you understand what I mean. Sorry, I hope you're still taking 5. Some of you who don't really, it's like bing bong, you don't know what's going on. I'm not making fun of you. Just listen and or ignore this. Just give me a few more minutes. So remember when the Kadosh Malachim came down and they were like, we're very offended by what Goliath said. It's because he insulted the earthly army. And remember, they're like all one, all the Lord's armies, right? The Lord, God is the creator. All his armies are one. Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? You insult me, you insult, the other guy, and then you insult my earthly army, you insult me, Okay. So that's a lot to process, I learned that the talk should usually only be about 20 minutes. If it's longer, you're like a machine. Very impressive. And there should only be like a few points, maybe only three or 4 sections to a, whenever you're watching, you're learning, right? It's called a session, SESSION. Every learning session should only be about 20 minutes long and broken down into maybe 3 or 4 sections. And then, you will be able to absorb it and process it, what is the word? That's the best. It won't be overloading. It won't be overwhelming. So thank you for listening. It's almost Christmas. Merry Christmas. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Hey, Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Da, 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 da. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. Remember, keep God first. He'll take you places. Hi, everyone. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a comment. Look, I have food. Thank you for supporting me. I just spit. I have food for HNM and coffee.